Today we're going to talk about two schools from the state of Florida who are both coming off good quarterback play from 2020. And we're going to talk about the Miami Hurricanes and the UCF Knights. And both quarterbacks have different styles of play, and both teams are fairly different, of course, being in different conferences, but both have solid quarterbacks going into 2020. Two of the best quarterbacks probably in college football right now, going into 2021, coming off 2020. So we're going to talk about Miami quarterback D'Eriq King, and then UCF quarterback Dillon Gabriel. And we're going to talk a little bit about the quarterback rooms itself, and we're going to see, or just kind of compare the two, and then at the very end, have you decide which quarterback you'd rather have in 2020, and then, or 2021, excuse me again, and then what quarterback room you would rather have moving forward. I think the quarterback room is probably the easy answer, but I think 2021 is going to be a pretty tough debate, and of course it depends on the offense you run, but this is all just kind of make you think a little bit and kind of a fun little exercise for all our Florida followers. But before we dive into the content of the video, I just want to encourage you to consider subscribing to this channel if you like any quarterback related content. So let's go ahead and dive into what we're actually going to talk about. We're going to talk about Miami quarterback D'Eriq King first. So we just put out a video about him, kind of describing his strengths, some areas to improve on, and why we think he can potentially bring the U back. I know people are tired of hearing about that. It's like when people say Texas is back. That's the same kind of concept that goes through people's mind when they say the U is back. But I think there's potential there with D'Eriq King, and if they have a big 2021, this could really help Miami moving forward. But let's look at King's stats from last year before he got injured in the last game. So they went 8-3, and they probably would have been 9-2 if King stayed healthy during that last game, during the bowl game. Let's look at these stats real quick. So D'Eriq King, 27 total touchdowns in 2020, 5 interceptions, over 2,600 yards passing, over 500 yards rushing. His completion percentage was 64.1. He was always very good and very accurate at U of H. And then his yards per attempt were 8.2. I thought he did some good things extremely well for Miami, and I thought he showed the ability to win in different ways. When you think of King, you think of a good athlete, you think of someone who can make a defender miss, and then he's going to be able to hit you here and there once the defense is out of position. But I don't think that's the case necessarily. I think he can throw from within the pocket. I think he does a good job processing and making reads and finding his matchups, which we saw him do well last year at Miami. I think that's why they were so good. And then, of course, when stuff hits the fan and the play breaks down, he can use his legs to pick up yards, pick up first downs, and kind of go off script and make a play when nothing is there. But I think there's a lot more to King than just being a good athlete who can throw when things break down. I think he can rip it from the pocket, and I think he'll continue to get better and better. And I think two examples, we talked about this in the video we did a week or two ago when we broke down D'Eriq King and kind of his game film, is two good examples are the game against Virginia Tech and the game against NC State. Miami won both those games, but did so very differently. NC State was an absolute shootout, and King was 31 of 41 for 5 touchdowns, 430 yards passing, and over 100 yards rushing. So there's a lot of big-time plays, some explosive plays, pushing the ball downfield, and then using his legs to pick up first downs. So that was one style of how Miami won and how King can be used. Another style is against Virginia Tech, which is actually one of my favorite styles, even though it's not as flashy. They won, it was like 25-24, something close, but they were down most of the game. Virginia Tech's playing tough defense. King was 24-38, about 250-ish yards passing, 2 total touchdowns, only 15 yards rushing. And they played tough defense. There were not a lot of explosive plays, so he had to really process defenses and take them downfield. So I think King can win in both different ways. Yes, it's fun to watch him when he's flashy and moving around, but he can also rip it from the pocket and process defense very well. So I think King has a big future in 2021, and Miami could really be good in 2021. So let's move on to UCF. UCF, Dillon Gabriel, right? This is entering his 3rd year starting. Mackenzie Milton has gone to Florida State, and then they got new head coach Gus Malzahn coming in, and a new coaching staff as well. So let's look at his stats from 2019 and 2020, and then kind of talk about what he does well real quick. And Dillon Gabriel is someone we've talked about a lot on the show the past few years, just because we cover a lot of G5 football, and he's been one of the best quarterbacks in all of Group of 5, and could be one of the best quarterbacks in college football in 2021. So in 2019. Let's look at these stats real quick. He had 33 total touchdowns, 7 interceptions in 2019, 9.2 yards per attempt, and his completion percentage was at 59.3, so right under 60. And they went 10-3 that year. In 2020, last year, of course, it was kind of a down year for UCF, going 6-4. The COVID year, he had a completion percentage of 60, yards per attempt at 8.6, only 4 interceptions, so down 3, and it's at 34 34. I think he was actually at 33 total touchdowns. I think I miswrote. No, he's at 34 total touchdowns. I'm sorry. So one more touchdown than he had in 2019. So I think Gabriel has a few more than a few, but I think there's a lot of good things as a quarterback. He pushes the ball downfield and does it extremely accurately, but I think it's impressive the fact that he does push the ball downfield so often and the interceptions are so low. So he had 7 his freshman year, yes, but I believe one of the games they lost, he had, I think, 3 or maybe two games he had a combined like 6 or something like that. So a lot of those interceptions came in losses. Last year he only had 4 interceptions, so that's a great touchdown to interception ratio. It was better than 7-1 if you're looking just as passing. I think it was an 8-1 actually touchdown to interception ratio from his passing touchdowns to his interception. So I think Gabriel does a great job pushing the ball downfield. He's accurate downfield. I think you probably want to see him a bit more accurate, the kind of intermediate routes if you want to be nitpicky. Being at 60%, 60 completion percentage is the number, which is not a bad number by any means, but I think that's one area to continue to improve upon. But when you push the ball downfield so often, I don't think it's a bad number whatsoever. Now, the biggest question for me with Dillon Gabriel in 2021, and we've talked about this before, is this the Gus Malzahn offense? How he's going to fit? What's going to happen? I think he's going to fit great. I think Malzahn's going to kind of mold the offense to him. We've heard there's probably going to be some tendencies you saw at Auburn, but then I think you're going to see him lean towards Dillon Gabriel's strengths and put him in a situation to succeed. Maybe I'm being optimistic, but I think Dillon Gabriel's going to have a huge year in 2021. I think they're going to be creative in getting their playmakers balls, which that's something Gabriel is so good at. I think one word to describe Dillon Gabriel is this a distributor of the football, and so getting the ball to his athletes and getting into space. And of course, UCF's going to be able to run the ball as well with Malzahn's offense. I think it's going to create some good holes, and so that's going to set up the passing game as well. So I think UCF is going to have a good offense. I think Gabriel is going to be able to take the next step and get even better, and really looking forward to 2021. Both Miami and both UCF have athletes all around them, especially in their respective conferences. UCF, compared to the AAC, another group of 5, they have athletes and just great people to throw to. Miami, of course, has great athletes and receivers as well, especially with some transfers coming in, specifically Charleston Rambo from OU to Miami. I think he's going to be a huge help to D'Eriq King. So which quarterback would you rather have in 2021? We're going to answer that in 1 second, because I think if we had another question and said which quarterback room you'd rather have moving forward, I think it's going to be Miami, for the simple fact we got King this year, and then you got Jake Garcia backing up this year and developing. He is the incoming freshman. He was here for the spring, had a good spring game. He was a high 4-star recruit. According to 247 Sports, he was at .97, which is pretty close to a 5-star. So he's up there. He's got a great chance to develop and learn behind King. Admittedly, I'm not too sure about UCF's kind of quarterback room, but I think as far as room goes, you go with Miami. And then if you're comparing King and Dillon Gabriel, again, different styles, different skills. So it depends what offense is running. I think for me, I think I lean towards King for the simple fact his versatility, and you saw the improvements that he continued to make last year. But I think you can make the argument either way. If you have offense that fits Gabriel's skill sets, of course you go with Gabriel. But I think both guys have a lot of potential in 2021. I like King, and I like what the offensive coordinator Lashley is doing with him. But I am excited for Malzahn to see kind of how they mold that offense to Dillon Gabriel. But I want to hear from you. Who would you rather have in 2021? What do you project? How do you project each quarterback to be in 2021? And we will see you next time, our next quarterback related video.